Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's tapping break. I'm Megan Basita, your energy management mentor, and I help moms to leverage their energy so that they can make the most of their time. And today I have a really cool affirmation or direction of conversation, a jumping off point or an icebreaker, if you will, around acknowledging how far we've come or what we do actually do for ourselves. And this comes from, it was a little bit different. This morning I was feeling a little differently and I was like, oh, we're going to go in that direction. And then I have just finished day 8 of my Time Out series, and we were discussing, different ways that we can honor the way that we actually do show up for ourselves. And that stemmed from a card that I pulled from this affirmation deck called Listen Bitch. I thought it was really fun. I quite enjoy these whenever I think to pull them. And this is the affirmation card that we were talking about, and it's not going to focus, but that's okay. So it says to give yourself the same love you pour out into the world. And so the thing that I wanted to just tap on today was acknowledging the fact that you do give yourselves the same love that you do put into the world, that you do pour into the world. You do give yourself some level of time, attention, energy, any kind of resource that you would give your kids, that you do give your spouse, that you do give your hobbies or interests or your jobs or your business or whatever it might be. You do that. And the thing that I think happens is we just don't necessarily acknowledge that often enough. We don't celebrate that often enough, and we don't make that the point of focus. We tend to focus on the challenges. We tend to focus on the misery of motherhood. And I do believe that, yes, mother has its own unique set of challenges, its own unique set of struggles and suffering and pain and just craziness, chaos, all of it. But if you're on this path, if you're doing this work, if you're working towards different experiences or experiencing motherhood differently, you have a leg up on most moms who maybe are not in the space to be in this space. I don't know, or who are not, who don't have the capacity to be in this space, right? And that's okay. They are where they are because that's where they are. And you are where you are because that's where you are. And the other thing that kind of came up for me when I was thinking about this affirmation is that we get to choose. We get to choose how much love we pour into ourselves, how much love we pour into others. We get to choose that feeling instead of being at the whim of our external circumstances dictating or predetermining the level of love, support, time, energy, money, whatever it might be that we pour into ourselves. So we are moving away from that preconditioned or preconceived notion that as a mom we have to suffer, or as a mom we have to sacrifice X, Y, and Z in order to be good or right. We are moving away from that, and we are determining our own level of enough, our own level of fulfillment, our own level of love that we are pouring into ourselves, and acknowledging that that is enough, and that is worthy and valuable. So let's get one tapping round on before I start going on an even further rant. And just around the times that, that misery of motherhood, I think, is a big thing. And I love alliteration, so it just flows for me. But we tend to feel like that motherhood is the place where we are meant to suffer. It's where we are meant to sacrifice, or we have, been taught that, or we see it in certain places. So we don't give ourselves credit when we're not, or we think it's bad, or we're negating the struggle, even though we are appreciating where we're at, or in joy of where we're at. And so let's just start tapping and see how that unfolds. So we're going to take a nice gentle breath here and start tapping on the side of the hand and say, even though motherhood sometimes requires me to focus on the challenges, Sometimes I focus on the misery. And that's okay. I love and accept myself anyway. I do know that I can succeed. I know that I can be appreciative and joyful. I know that I've had wins as a mom. And sometimes it's hard to acknowledge those when everyone or everything around me says I have to struggle or sacrifice in order to be doing it right or doing it good. I see this part of me here today. And I love and accept her deeply and completely. Especially because she has been taught that there are sacrifices and struggles and suffering. That needs to happen as a mom. I wonder if I'm ready to honor both. The part of me that actually experiences that suffering or struggle. And the part of me that experiences the wins and the joy and the appreciation. And I love and accept both of these parts of me today. Okay, we're going to go to the top of the head and say, as a mom, it's sometimes required. Eyebrow point, or it's sometimes a main experience. Side of the eye, that I have to suffer or struggle. Underneath the eye, I honor all of the struggle and the suffering that I've been through up until now. Underneath the nose, I honor the struggles that I will be going through right now. Underneath the mouth, and I honor any future struggles that I will come into, that I will encounter. Collarbone point, and I forgive myself for believing. Underneath the arm, that's the main focus as a mom. Underneath the chest, I forgive myself for believing. Wrist points, that in order to be a good mom or do motherhood right, top of the head, I need to struggle, suffer, or sacrifice. Eyebrow point, I give myself permission to see this differently today. Side of the eye, I can honor both the struggle. Underneath the eye, and I can honor the joy. Underneath the nose, I can struggle and succeed. Underneath the mouth, as a mom today. Okay. So just taking a nice gentle breath there. And just noticing if anything comes up for you around that, if you notice that you tend to focus more on the challenges or if you get pulled into that thinking or that way of being in and around other moms or in and around, excuse me, other people who have that belief that as a mom, it's really hard. As a mom, it's really busy. As a mom, you sacrifice. As a mom, you have to get the short end of the stick. As a mom, you don't get to prioritize yourself. And so it's interesting, and I have experienced this myself personally, where we try to meet that expectation for those that we know believe in that. And I mean, there have been people, random women in the grocery store that will be like, ain't that motherhood? I think there was an experience that I had where, my daughter was doing something and having a bit of a tantrum, and she was a couple years old at the time. And the woman, I think she turned to me and she said something along the lines of, oh, that's just motherhood for you. Ain't that motherhood? And I remember thinking, yeah, but like, this is not how she acts 24/7. She goes through phases, but this is not how she acts 24/7. She sometimes comes undone and unwound, and that's not all the time. And I remember then thinking, but it's not always like this. So like, why would I, it's just a different way of seeing things. And so I think it's really important that as moms, we kind of set the tone for what it is that we want to see and what we want other people to see. And this is that whole I choose to feel thing, right? We're not going to wait for somebody else to say, shit, that's mom life, ain't it? Like, or yeah, it's a struggle. Yeah, it's hard. Yes, it is all of those things. But do you want to choose to feel that way the majority of the time? Or like applying that 80-20 rule, like 80% of the time, it could be good. It could be joyful. It could be appreciative. You could be succeeding as a mom. You're succeeding as a mom, whether you're, struggling or not, because you're a fucking mom. Your kids are still alive. You're succeeding. But there's different levels and layers to that, right? So like, you get to choose what you believe, and you get to choose how you see those things. You get to choose. If mom life means you sacrifice time alone for yourself, certain seasons, certain days, certain experiences, sure. Not 24/7, not 24/7, 365, not 100% of the time. I think I call bullshit. So you can choose to feel that prioritization. You can choose to feel the joy. You can choose to feel appreciation. I recently made a reel on Instagram around the benefit of being a stay-at-home mom and, likening it to, or, comparing it to like housework. Nobody appreciates as much as you do that housework, and nobody appreciates how much time and energy you spend doing that housework. You need to appreciate it. You need to love it. You need to choose to feel the appreciation and the joy of sitting in a nice clean house, even if it's just for a minute or 2 or 5 minutes, drinking a cup of coffee. It just sounds hilarious, but when I clean the bathroom, you're damn straight I'm going to be the first one to use the bathroom before there's shit all over the mirrors. Spit, no shit. Like there's water all over the mirrors, and somebody's like dropping towels everywhere, and there's pieces of toilet paper somewhere because somebody was picking at the toilet paper when they were going to the bathroom and they were bored, like drawing on the windows in the steam, right? So you get to choose. You get to choose to appreciate those moments before it gets crazy again. And also, if you live in a house with kids, shit's going to hit the fan. Your house is never going to be clean. I shouldn't say it's never going to be clean and you're never going to be able to have good things. You can, but you need to acknowledge and appreciate those things for yourself, and not let somebody, or not wait for somebody to come in and be like, that's a damn fine job. That was a really good job you did on that floor. Or that was a really good job you did on the bathroom. Or God damn, these dishes are clean. Like, you're not really going to get that. And I don't think, that we need to. I think that we need to appreciate it, and we need to acknowledge that we're doing a good job. And then others are going to see that we are happy with the work we do, and they can be happy with the work we do. And if it is something that is important to you that you are acknowledged, then you need to ask. You need to speak that. I think that was one of the biggest things that I ever learned, was that my spouse, my kids, They're not mind readers. They're pretty oblivious to a lot of things unless I ask. And if it's really important and I get clear on why it's important to me, and it's still important to me, and it's still important that they, acknowledge something for me, then that is needed. That needs to be communicated. You have to choose to have that conversation, right? So that, I'm just trying to think of where I need to go because I was on a little bit of a rant. So yeah, not waiting for somebody else to acknowledge and not to choose to feel for you. So don't let other people's beliefs or preconceptions or taught conditioning, whatever it might be, dictate how you feel about your motherhood. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay. So, and the other thing that I wanted to touch on is it's safe to have both. Now, this is another thing that really comes up that I see a lot in conversations that I have personally, or that I see in passing on social media, just conversations that, through social media. And it is that we always have some kind of a disclaimer energy around what it is we're experiencing. So if you are having a really shitty day and it's just like you're venting to a friend or something, or you're having a conversation, be like, oh, this and this and this and this and that, and then you turn and go, oh, but everything is fine. Yes, but that's whiplash for you and for the people that you're talking to. More so for you. I would focus more so for you. And the other thing too, it's like, we have to say that disclaimer, like, oh, but everything is fine, because it's like in some way, shape, or form, we don't think that the person we're talking to can handle what it is that we're speaking to, and that we can't have they're not holding enough space for us almost. Or it's like, what I also tend to feel around this is like, if we are having a really hard time, we have to pick up the slack for, like, we are grateful. Yeah, we're grateful, but we're not processing something in that moment, or we're trying to process something, and it like negates the fact that we're struggling. It negates that fact. And so same with, like, if things are going really well, I've noticed this too, that I've noticed this. I was walking behind a couple of women in the mall the other day while I was shopping, and they were talking about something, and it just, I got the impression that it was about like motherhood, or like how hard or what, like, and the woman was like, oh yeah, well actually this has been going pretty good, but, and then she like listed a whole bunch of other things that were not going really well. And it's like they had to disclaim that, or they had to do that in order to negate, like, oh, but you know what, I don't know if I can be happy. I don't know if I can, there's always this disclaimer where it's just like, motherhood is nuanced. It is absolutely contrast, it's duality, and it's polarity, and it happens within a moment of time. I'm understanding of that for sure, but it's like that whiplash. That's where this whiplash comes from, where we're just like thrown, we can't keep up with ourselves when we're like, everything is awesome. Nope. But you know what? It's, this is really hitting the fan. So we like downplay what's going really well to like bring in something that's not doing well, or vice versa. And so I think this is kind of all over the place, but choose to feel. Like, you can choose to feel both. You can feel the struggle and you can feel successful. You can choose both. One does not negate the other. Just because, something you've done, you've made a choice. Just because you've made a choice does not mean that it's automatically going to be easy. Just because you chose to be a stay-at-home mom does not mean that it's not going to have its struggles or pain or suffering or sacrifice. But just because, it doesn't negate. You're not negating anything when you honor both sides of you. And so you get to choose to feel that. So let's just go to the side of the hand and say, even though motherhood is a whirlwind, there are so many emotions, so many ups and downs. I can start the day one way, hit a whole new level by noon, and be at the completely other end of the spectrum by the time I go to bed. And I love the shit out of myself in spite of this. Even though there's a lot of whiplash, a lot of ups and downs, I would like to choose to slow things down every once in a while and take the space that I need to process what I need to process. And I love and accept myself, even if I don't do this. Especially because motherhood is a full range of emotion. There are a very wide range of beliefs and just a ton of nuanced energy. Today, I choose to give myself some grace. And I choose to feel what I'm experiencing today, deeply and completely. We'll go to the top of the head and say, all of these things that I experience with motherhood, eyebrow point, all the ups and downs, side of the eye, all of the emotional whiplash underneath the eye that I experience from myself and from others. Underneath the nose. Today I'm pausing for a moment. Underneath the mouth and acknowledging how well I've been handling all of this. Collarbone point. Nobody can do this like I can. Underneath the arms. Nobody can handle me and my kids and my family like I can. Underneath the chest. Today I choose to feel appreciation. Wrist point. I choose to feel gratitude and relief. Top of the head. In the way that I've been handling everything. Eyebrow point. Today I choose to acknowledge side of the eye that it's okay to feel the struggle underneath the eye, and it's okay to feel the joy underneath the nose. It's okay to sacrifice underneath the mouth, and it's okay to prioritize myself. Collarbone point. All of these contrasts underneath the arms, all of this polarity underneath the chest. I could choose to keep paying attention. Wrist points to the beliefs and the conditions. Top of the head that others have put on me. Eyebrow point that others have put on motherhood in general. Side of the eye. Or I can choose underneath the eye to believe what I want to believe. Underneath the nose. I can choose to feel my experience in the moment that I experience it. Underneath the mouth. And I can choose to feel appreciation and gratitude towards myself. Collarbone point. For however I handle what is thrown my way. Okay. So just taking a nice gentle breath, leaning into that, and noticing how you feel about that, especially the part where it's like you've been handling what you've been, handling what you've been experiencing well. Do you believe that? And again, nobody can handle your shit like you can. Right? And so instead of seeing that as a kind of like, I can see how some may misconstrue that as like, I'm the only one that can handle this. It's all on me, or I have to control this. But like, when I see it as a way of like, I'm the one who can handle this. And so I'm going to do it on my terms. One of my favorite sayings or anchors that I have for myself is, I'm going through this shit, I get to call the shots. And I think that moms don't utilize this power enough for themselves. They're the ones that do, 98% of what it is that moms do. And yet we are letting others dictate and determine how we do what we do. And no, don't play that game anymore. Let's stop playing that game. You're the one who's doing all of this stuff. You get to determine it. It doesn't mean you don't get to consider other people or your kids or your spouse or, those who you choose to consider. It is important to consider that. But I mean, at the end of the day, if they're not doing it and it falls on you, do it your own fucking way. And do what makes it good for you. Do what makes it easy for you. I came across a quote, and we'll end on this. I came across the quote, and I don't know if I can quote it or say it directly, but it's on my Instagram page. It's the cover of a reel. It's by Ali Wong, and I'm pretty sure she did a Netflix special, like a comedy special. It was absolutely hilarious. I might have to rewatch it again to see if I still find it as funny as I did. This was probably like 5 years ago that I watched it. But anyway, it's like something about, and then I was like, and I'm choosing not to suffer. Like, I've suffered enough. You have suffered enough. And that's became her mantra in, motherhood, is like, you have suffered enough. And then, like, if you can make it easy, right? So I really, really do believe that you can have success and you can have what you want, and you can, what it's like, you don't have to suffer in order to build resilience. We can do some things pretty easy. We need to learn lessons sometimes, but a lot of the time we make it harder than it actually needs to be. So we're going to end there. It's a little lengthy one. I hope this was helpful for you guys today. Please let me know what you think about this. Let me know any thoughts, any feedback, any aha moments, or anything at all in the comments below. And we will see you next week for our tapping break. Have an amazing rest of your day, guys. Bye.